Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abby and I am a homeschooling mom of 4. Today's video is a special one. This is a video that my friend Jessica from the Waldock Way and I do once a month, and it is the Homeschool Show Tell open collaboration. So in today's video, there will be a playlist and I'll link it up here for you as well. And all throughout the month, and this month is January, so all throughout the month of January, other moms and homeschool channels will be collaborating and adding their videos to that playlist where they share their advice or their take on the topic. So if you are interested in linking up with us and participating in this open collaboration, the info is in the description box below as far as how to join. And the topic this month is how to avoid homeschool burnout. So it's just that time of year where people start to get burnt out and they're reevaluating everything, wondering if they're gonna homeschool next year, wondering if they're gonna use the same curriculum next year, wondering if they're gonna make it through this year. All the super fun holidays are behind us, and this tends to be where the rubber really meets the road in the school year. So if you're interested in hearing my tips on how to avoid homeschooling burnout, then stick around. So this is actually a topic that I've probably touched on a handful of times on my channel, and I may even have another video about homeschool burnout or something along those lines. But I did decide to categorize these into like my tips on being proactive and avoiding the burnout, but also tips on being reactive to the burnout when you do get to that point of being burnt out, because we can't always avoid it. It's inevitable at some point in your homeschooling journey, if not multiple times in your homeschooling journey, if you're like me. And so I've got some proactive tips, some reactive tips, and then just some general don'ts that I have learned along the way. All of these are just based on my experience. So some of the advice that I am giving is basically speaking to myself. And if it doesn't really resonate with you, then it doesn't have to work for you. So just keep that in mind. But I did write some notes down, so I will be glancing down at that, just a heads up. So my first proactive tip on avoiding homeschool burnout is just leaving the right amount of space in your schedule. And that is the yearly calendar, your weekly homeschool calendar, and your daily rhythm in your homeschool. So we started homeschooling year-round because we generally have more time available in the summer, and we generally get busier at the holiday season where we want to slow down a little bit and pump the brakes. And doing a traditional school schedule from September through May did not allot the time that we needed to get everything done, and also allow us the time to slow down at the appropriate time for our family. And so we switched to a year-round schedule, and that has really helped us avoid burnout, especially because we can then pump the brakes throughout the year as necessary for all sorts of different reasons, for health reasons, for emotional reasons, just to kind of get a little distance from curriculum for a minute if we need it and not feel guilty or feel behind for doing so. So that's one way that we've made the yearly schedule work for us. There are a million different ways to schedule though. If you have to follow a school calendar, maybe you have other kids who are in school and so you want your kids to have their summers together, or maybe you know, maybe your kids go to a parent's house, maybe you guys have a co-parenting situation and they go in the summer or they go in the winter and spend time with their other parent, and they need to be available for that. Then you can do the 6 weeks on, 1 week off Sabbath schooling method, or you can do like a week off every certain number of weeks, or just however you need to work it out to allow for the right amount of time in your schedule. As far as weekly schedules go, you know, not over scheduling to the point where you're doing so many co-ops that you don't have time to do your academics, or you know, giving yourself the space. If you want to say half of the day on Friday is going to be Fun Friday, and we're just going to leave that space and add in the extra things that we can't really fit in throughout the week. And then in the daily schedule as well, it's important to leave space for silent reading and a little overflow if your kids are going to need some extra help on math but you only have 20 minutes scheduled for math, etc. So it's really important to leave the right amount of space, and that is really my first tip for avoiding the burnout, because I feel like the calendar and the daily schedule is where the burnout really starts. My second tip as far as being proactive and avoiding the burnout in the first place is to implement a quiet time and independent work time into your schedule if that's possible. The quiet time is super helpful because my kids can get some silent reading done and I can kind of regroup in the middle of the school day, get some stuff done that I need to get done, or just let my brain rest a little bit, and they can do the same. It's important for them to kind of get a little bit of space because it's not really healthy for them to have somebody standing over them constantly telling them what to do next, what to do next, what to do next. And as far as I'm concerned and my family is concerned, that has helped us a lot, having a little bit of space in the middle of the day just for some quiet time. We do it right after lunch and then we get back to anything that needs to be finished. The other thing to implement, if possible, is an independent work time. I set some time up in our schedule where I'm actively teaching the kids and I'm helping them with their lessons, and then I set up some time for independent work where they get some things done, be it worksheets or busy work or anything that their curriculum requires that doesn't necessarily need me standing over them, to get that work done, because it's really just good for you as the teacher too, to not spend every second of your day, to not fill it all with active instruction. It's not actually necessary if your kids are old enough to be able to do some independent work. So my first grader, my fourth grader, and my sixth grader all do their handwriting independently. They do math independently, any types of worksheets or anything like that they do independently, and then they'll do some reading independently. But the key is that you have to inspect what you expect. And this is something that Sonia Schaefer said, and it's something that I listened to over the summer, to inspect what you expect. So giving them independent work is not going to be beneficial if you're not going to look at that work at the end of the day or the end of the week and make sure that they're staying on track, because then they could be forming bad habits. However, if they know that you're going to be checking it at some point, they're more likely to do their best effort. And it's also good for them to just have some space and to work independently. And it's really good for you, teacher, to have some space and work independent, or to give them some space to work independently and not be hovering over them all the time and not be stressing yourself and correcting every single pencil stroke all day long. It's just super helpful, and it will keep you from being burnt out, because active instruction all day, every day is just gonna lead you to a really quick burnout. Number 3, the least popular but probably most necessary point to make, is get in bed on time for you as the parent, and wake up early before the kids if possible. If you're in a season of life where you don't have like a newborn and you can wake up early, get some time to yourself, take care of yourself, get some space in your schedule to do some housework and to keep up with some stuff before the kids wake up. Because if you're waking up when they're waking up and your needs are met with their demands and their needs at the same time, it's just not going to be a great way to get the day going well, keep the weeks flowing well, or the year in general. And so that little bit of space in the morning is super helpful for me as a mom. I get a little bit of independent space for myself. I can actually do my hair or brush my teeth before anyone, you know, hits me with their hunger or something like that. And then it also keeps me from staying up too late, trying to grasp for some time for myself, and then starting the cycle of fatigue, and then just not being prepared and not being ready and feeling overwhelmed. And then my fourth way to be proactive in avoiding homeschool burnout is to work in the functionality of your home into your school schedule. I tried for a really long time to keep school to set hours, and then I would try to get housework done at set hours, and kept them separate for way too long, until I realized that our home functioning well kept our school functioning well, kept our family functioning well, and all things kind of worked harmoniously and organically. And so therefore, when John, who's my husband, asks me how he can help with school, I think the gut reaction is to say, oh, you could teach them how to do this handcraft with wood. That would be super helpful. But it really wouldn't be most helpful. It would be helpful for him to teach a subject, but it would be most helpful for him to help the kids do their chores when he's home from work in the evening, or if he can help just tidy up the kitchen at the end of the day, because that will keep the flow going really well. So just being mindful of how your home functions best and how that contributes to your school days functioning best will be a really good way to avoid that really like just difficult walking through mud feeling by the time you're halfway through the school year. Okay, but say you're already at the point of burnout and all of these proactive tips mean nothing. Let's talk about some things you can do to be reactive appropriately and react well to the burnout instead of just throwing it all out the window, which is what I always feel like doing when I feel super burnout. So tip number one is some on-site learning. Field trips or nature walks or even documentaries, which aren't necessarily on site, but I want to throw that in because it's January of 2021. If you're watching this in the future, hopefully things are looking up. But you know, not everybody can go on field trips right now, depending on where you live, or might not feel comfortable going and visiting places, or things might not even be open. And so if you can't go on field trips, or you can't go on nature walks, or you can't get outdoors to do things, documentaries are the next best thing, in my opinion. Watching a few documentaries on the same subject can almost mimic a field trip. At least it can when you're in the middle of a pandemic, I want to say. And so just some on-site learning, some really invested learning, just kind of like focused in on one topic can be great. It can spark a new interest or just kind of give you a little bit more excitement about learning. So we just took our kids to a museum, and you had to do the whole like setting a time frame. Your family is your only tour group. You can't be with another family. And I think they were in like 15 or 20-minute increments, and then you had to be self-guided on the museum tour. And I think that was like our first time in a museum in a very, very long time, from what I can remember, actually, now that I think about it. But it felt so good to be on a field trip and for the kids to really go in depth on learning about something and to be excited about something that we actually had never studied before, but I just wanted to go on this tour as soon as I saw it was available. The kids were super interested. I'm already excited to start planning maybe like a unit study or a topic or a themed lesson, or at least read a read aloud about this place that we visited. And so doing some on-site learning, just letting your kids kind of explore a little bit, seeing where they're at, seeing if there's a new interest, and just kind of learning yourself at the same time, because on-site learning is really helpful for you as a person too. It can be exciting to you as well and just spark a new interest and remind you of why you love to learn. So a little on-site learning can be a great tool if you need to get out of the house, you need to get away from the academics, and you need to remember that it can be really fun to learn and get outside of the walls of your homeschool room. The second way you can positively react to being burnt out and maybe avoid a little more burnout is along the same lines. It's just to do a unit study. We love 5 in a row. We love 5 in a row, you guys know that. There's also a ton of other unit studies out there, science themed or history themed, or just some fun teachers pay teachers things you can find online. But when we are really starting to like skid to a stop, I like to just stop most of our academics and just do a full family unit study. Even though my oldest is almost 12, she still loves doing 5 in a row with us, especially if it involves cooking or baking. And so we'll just pick a 5 in a row book and spend the whole week doing that. That gives me a little bit of distance from what it is that's kind of stressing me out, or gives my kids a little distance from what it is that's causing tension for them as well. While also, and this is really important, keeping our rhythm going. So we are keeping our normal days going. We're not like going out of town or scrapping school altogether and sitting around all day watching TV. We are still doing some routine. We're waking up, we're doing the same morning routine, we're still doing our chores. It's just that our school time is reserved to something that's maybe just a little bit more exciting for that 1 week. And everything else is remaining intact, so that when we do the following week get started with school again, it's not starting with our habits again as well, which can be really difficult if you just completely stop cold turkey. But speaking of cold turkey, if you've ever read Teaching from Rest, which is written by Sarah Mackenzie, she's the one who does the Read Aloud Revival. I love her so much, and I loved that book a ton. She talks about the Just Because You Can Day in that book, and that is literally just telling your kids that you're gonna go do something fun, like a trampoline park or bowling, again, pre-pandemic, or the beach, or a snow day, just because you can. Just because other schools are in session, everyone else has to be in school, but we don't have to. We homeschool, we can do something fun just because we can. So making like a random Tuesday feel like a Saturday, basically. It can be really healthy for you and your kids to just reestablish some good connection, good relationship moment, and then jump right back into your regular schoolwork the next day. Sometimes that's all it takes, is just reminding each other that you can have fun together, that they can trust that you're not going to be reactive all the time, that you can trust that you're a good mom, and you know, you don't need to put all of your worth into how you're functioning as a homeschool parent as well. Just enjoy your kids and then jump right back into it. So take a just because you can day if you need to, if you really just need to throw a Hail Mary and like take a break for a minute, just randomly do a just because you can day. And then another way to be reactive positively, if you can't do any of those other things or those things don't interest you or you really do actually need to get the schoolwork done, is to just take a minute and reorganize and regroup in your homeschool space. For me, anytime that I reorganize my bookshelves and then I straighten up all of our pencils, restock our school supplies, and like clean it up, especially if I'm able to like mop, it's the best feeling when my schoolroom is organized and mopped. It feels like a nice fresh start, and sometimes that's all it takes. I have gotten into the routine this year of switching up the posters on our wall seasonally. I just got our new winter posters. I'm putting our Christmas posters away and pulling out our winter posters, and that's something that just has me stoked, and I'll be riding that high for like 2 whole weeks before the space seems a little cluttered to me. But just little things like that, just silly little things like that can really make a huge difference. Just being organized, it makes preparations easier. It might make it easier for your kids to focus if things are tidied up. It might make it easier for you to focus if things are tidied up. And so that is another way to deal with the burnout when you get to the point of already being burnt out. All right, and then last but not least, before I let you guys go and let you work through the rest of the playlist and hear wisdom from other homeschooling homes, I want to talk about a few things that I've learned to just not do when I'm feeling overwhelmed. The number one is to just not push through the pressure when it's just really not gonna be good. You know when emotions are high, you know when tensions are high, you know when mental space is not right to push through, and you don't have to. It's one of the joys of homeschooling is that there are other ways than pushing the pedal to the metal. Sometimes it's good to just get a little bit of distance from things and just take a little bit of a breather, and it's okay. And you have to kind of wire your brain to think that it's okay, because I think a lot of the times, because there's no rules for a lot of us, you know, depending on what state you live in, we put too many rules in place to keep ourselves in check, which is me. I live in a state where it's very simple to homeschool, so I've made it very complicated so that I don't fall apart or slip through the cracks. And so sometimes it's just good to take a little bit of a break. Do teach endurance. Of course, it's important to teach our kids to work through when they're having a struggle, but it's also important to show our kids some grace, because there are a lot of times, like my husband owns a business and I see him working himself to the bone sometimes unnecessarily, because that's how he functions. That's how he's been taught to function. Is you just go hard. You don't slow down. And it's important for us to raise healthy adults as kids, you know, who are learning where it's appropriate to give grace, where it's necessary to take a breather, where it's necessary to take a step back and regroup so you can come back and do something a little better. For example, when I'm teaching my kids how to swim, it's very important for my kids to know how to swim. We have a pool in our backyard. They have to learn how to swim. But when I'm teaching them how to swim and they are sitting there and they're getting tired and they're starting to, like, you know, keep their heads bobbing under a little bit, and I see them start to flail and go faster, nothing good's gonna come of that. It's important to pull them off to the side and give them a little bit of a break to regroup, and they're gonna come back stronger and they're gonna come back better. And that happens almost every time that my kids or I hit a hard place in our homeschool. It's important to know when rest is more beneficial than when pushing like play really hard is more beneficial. So do not push through pressure if you see that there's nothing good, no good benefit that is going to come from that. At the same time, don't just scrap it all either. Sometimes that's like our gut reaction, is to just be like, well, it's this curriculum, or it's this, or it's blah, 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 and then you just scrap the whole thing. Just get some distance. Reading is the best example I have of that. Each of my older 3 kids who I've taught to read have come to the point where they just need a minute to enjoy reading again, or to catch up with where we're at. And so with all 3 of them, and with one of them twice, we had to stop twice with him, we took about, I wanna say like 2 to 3 weeks, and we just did nothing. And they came back 10 times better, almost able to fly through the next few lessons without even doing them, because a little distance did their heart some good. It did my heart some good. We were starting lessons at a point of already being agitated before we even got through the lesson. A little distance did us a lot of good. And like I said, with one of my kids, we actually stopped twice. Once we stopped for like 2.5 months. And yes, I was scared in the middle of that time, but I also knew that it was right and that that child just needed to enjoy being read to. And they came back so much stronger, so with a much more confidence, and with a much better attitude from me and them both. So a little distance can really go a long way. Next I have here is don't be too hard on yourself. You might come to the same point of burnout every single year for the same reason, and you might be tempted to tell yourself that it's your fault and that you will never be a good homeschooling parent, or that this will never work for you, or that you'll never get over this hump, or that it's always going to be this difficult. One amazing thing about homeschooling is that it's refining. One really hard thing about homeschooling is that it's really refining. And so yeah, a lot of times you'll come to the same point of burnout, and a lot of times it will be for the same reason. But almost all of those times, it's a good opportunity for some self-reflection and not self-doubt. See what it is that's causing this tensions, and do what you can about it. So for example, for me, I come to the same point almost every single year where I'm super overwhelmed by our schedule. I have kids who are like super extroverted and who thrive on that. I am not super extroverted. I am not. And I've learned that I need some low notes to balance out the high notes. And so I've learned how to be proactive and to work that into my schedule. But do you know how I learned that? I learned that by coming to the same point like 3 years in a row and thinking that I was a terrible homeschooling mom and I was gonna need to quit because I could never keep up with the schedule or the demands because it stressed me and overwhelmed me. I came to that point where I thought I couldn't do it. And then I realized, no, I can do it, but I'm also going to have to learn some boundaries for myself. I'm also going to have to learn how to not react in the middle of this and how to look ahead and see where I can put something in place for myself to rest. And it's the best thing I've ever done, both for my homeschooling life, but also for my parenting life, because I was bound to come to this point. I was bound to break down about something. I was bound to hit a bump in the road, whether it was because of homeschooling or not. So just because you come to the same point regularly of burnout doesn't mean that you can't do this. Don't take it out on yourself, but do a little self-reflecting and see if there's something you can do to avoid it or to make it more enjoyable or to work something out. You know, sometimes we just have to work some stuff out. There's no shame in going to counseling or to going to therapy, and a lot of times it is homeschooling, it's parenting, it is, you know, being needed 24/7 that is going to call those things out of you, and you're going to realize there's something you might need to deal with. So don't take it out on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. And then last but not least, and this goes along with not taking it out on yourself, don't take it out on your kids. If it is your kids, if you're doing everything perfectly right and you're not feeling burnout, but your kids are, don't take it out on them either. This is something that is only going to work if it works in tandem. There's got to be grace. There's got to be an ebb and flow. There's got to be some bigger life lessons being learned in the little academic lessons as well. Value your relationship with your kids over academics. And if you're able to do that, then it'll be much easier for you to see when a break is necessary, and to also give yourself permission to take those necessary breaks when need be, if your focus is on your relationship and not on the academics as much. So I hope this was encouraging. Let me know down below what some of your top tips are for avoiding the burnout or dealing with the burnout when you are feeling that mid-year homeschooling burnout. And if you guys have a YouTube channel and you want to link up with us, make sure you check out the info in the description box down below. I really hope to see you on this playlist if so, and make sure you go pop through all of the other videos. Thank you, Jessica, for co-hosting this with me once again. This has been really enjoyable. Jessica is a good friend of mine outside of this YouTube space as well, and so when I watch her videos, it's just, she's so genuine, and she's the same way in her videos as she is on the phone. And so I'm interested in hearing what her tips are, because I just love her family so much, and and I just know she has a heart for this community, and so I know she's gonna share some really good, honest, transparent tips with all of us. So I am looking forward to going over and watching her video as well. So thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.